Begin the Reit Gemara on Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph, where it says V'Rabbanon, the beginning of a line, about 10 lines into the Amud. The Gemara here is discussing the Mishnah at the end of Daf Pei Hey Amud Beis, where it said that similar to Truma, where the halacha is that only a kohen could eat Truma. So from the Mishnah, it seemed in the simple pshat of the Mishnah that the same applies to Meiser. Meiser Rishon is only given to a Levi, and only the Levi can eat the Meiser, nobody other than the Levi. And the Gemara here brought that this is the opinion of Rab Meir. Rab Meir says that we compare Meiser to Truma. Just like by Truma we know only the Kohen can eat Truma, similar regarding Meiser Rishon, only a Levi can eat Truma. And he brought a pasuk. If you look a little before in the Gemara, the pasuk that said was, Ki es Meiser b'nei Yisrael asher yarimu l'Hashem Truma. So on this pasuk, it begins with the word Meiser, it ends with the word Truma. So we compare Meiser to Truma to say that it's only for a Levi, just like Truma is only for a Kohen. But the Rabbanon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah before, and here the Gemara says Rabbanon disagree with this and say Truma could be eaten only by a Kohen. Meiser is not so. Meiser, we give it to the Levi, but then once it belongs to the Levi, he can give it to whoever he wants. There's no issur for anybody to eat Meiser. He can give it to a regular Yisrael to eat Meiser. So now the Gemara wants to know, according to the Rabbanon, why is the pasuk comparing Meiser to Truma? V'Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, what's this comparison of Meiser to Truma? Ma truma tivela. So the answer is, just like by truma, if you don't take truma from your produce, so then your produce is tevel. Tevel means any produce that was not truma and meisers were not taken of it. And if you eat from tevel, you chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. Af meiser rishon nami tevel. So too, when it comes to meiser rishon, if you don't take meisers from any of the produce, so then you're also going to be chayiv misa b'dei shemayim if you eat from it. And the Gemara brings a source from a Braise where we see that even if you just missed any of the Maisris, it's still called Tevel. Now there's different types of Maisris, as we'll see here in this Braise. Okay, the Tanya, Rabbi Yossi said, Yachol, I would think, Lo yechayev, a person would not be chayiv misa if he eats from Tevel, El al Tevel shalei hura mimenu koliker. Only if it's Tevel, if you have your produce, that no Trume, no Maisris was taken at all. Hura mimenu truma gedayla. How about if the truma gedayla, which is the truma that goes to the kohen, was taken from it, but v'loy hura mimenu meiser rishon. But the meiser rishon, which goes to the Levi, was not taken. Or even if meiser rishon, even if you did take the truma and meiser rishon, but not still another meiser, v'loy meiser sheni, did not take the meiser sheni, which is the meiser you bring to eat in Yerushalayim. Or even if the Meiser Sheni was taken, but Vafila Meiser Ani Minayin. How about in a year where you're giving Meiser Ani, so only the Meiser Ani was not taken from this produce? Minayin, how do you know that the chiyuv of not eating from Tevel, the chiyuv Misa would still apply? Talmud Loima, so Rabbi Yossi says, we learn it out from the following pasuk. It says, Leisucha lechol b'sharecha. Regarding Meiser Sheni, the pasuk says, Leisucha, you should not eat the Meiser Sheni in any of your cities. You have to bring it to Yerushalayim. That's a simple pshat of the pasuk. So it uses the term bisharecha when it speaks about Meiser Sheni. Then there's another pasuk where it speaks about Meiser Ani, v'achlu bisharecha v'saveyu. And here it also says bisharecha, the same term that you eat it in your cities and you'll be satisfied. So we compare the two. We compare Meiser Ani to Meiser Sheni. Ma'asharecha melahalon Meiser Ani, just like we had this word bisharecha here. That speaks about Meiser Ani. When it says Leisucha lechol b'sharecha in the previous pasuk, it includes also Meiser Ani. And what's the Torah saying? Loi suchal, that you will not be able to eat unless you take the Meiser Ani. So this drasha is coming to teach me that the loy suchal, it's not a simple pshat of the pasuk. As I mentioned, the simple pshat of the pasuk is just coming to teach you that you should not eat Meiser Sheni outside of Yerushalayim. But the Gemara is darshaning and comparing and saying that we learn from here that just like you have to take the Meiser Sheni, and until you don't take Meiser Sheni, the produce is called Tevel, and you chayiv misa if you eat from it. It's the same also regarding Meiser Ani. If you don't take the Meiser Ani, then there's a lav. Loy suchal, you're not allowed to eat from it, and you chayiv misa if not. Okay, so this is the source that it says here in the Braise. But now the thing is, in this Braise you see that there's another pasuk we're learning this out from. The Gemara started off saying that according to the Rabbanon, we learn it out from the pasuk that was brought before, that we compare Meiser to Truma. The pasuk that was brought was Ki es Meiser b'nei Yisrael asher yirimu l'Hashem Truma. So the Gemara clarifies. Now, v'i mahasam, if I would just learn it from this pasuk that I just brought over here in the Braise, hava min lelav, I would say that this pasuk is only a lav. It's lo yisuchal is a lav, to say that you're not allowed to eat from the produce until you take even meiser ani. Avon misaloi, but I wouldn't know that if you eat from the produce before you took the meiser ani, that the isser is so stringent that you would be chayiv misa. That I wouldn't know. So therefore, kamash malon. That's why we need the previous pasuk that was brought, that we compare meiser to truma. By truma, the halacha is that if you don't take truma, then the tavel that you eat from, you chayiv misa. So from that I know that the same applies to meiser as well, that if you don't take any of the meisers and you eat from the tavel, you chayiv misa. The Gemara now brings the same exact concept that we just learned, but in a little bit of a different version. Lishna achrina, another version how this was presented. Meiser ishin the tavel, the question was asked, the fact that if you don't take meiser ishin, and your produce remains tevel, mid Rabbi Yosi nafke. That we learn from the drasha that Rabbi Yosi said in the Braisa, because it says, leisucha lecho b'sharecha. So why do we need the pasuk that we brought before that compares ma'aseh to truma? So it was asked as a question. And the answer was given, like we said before, Ima, if I would just learn that from the drasha of Rabbi Yosi, hava min lav, I would think it's only a lav, the lav of lo yisuchal. Avol misaloi, but if you did not take all the maisres, I wouldn't think you chayiv misa for this. Kamash malon, that's why we have the pasuk comparing meiser to truma, just like by truma, if you don't take truma, you chayiv misa, so too regarding meiser. Okay, now the Gemara will go back to the Mishnah, because again, if you look in the Mishnah said that similar to the case of truma, that truma is only for a kohen, or for a wife that marries a kohen. It's the same thing regarding meiser. That meiser is only for a Levi, or for a Bas Yisrael that gets married to a Levi. That's what it said in our Mishnah. And the Gemara explained until here that this follows Rav Meir's opinion. But now the Gemara is going to ask on this based on the last case that it said in the Mishnah. What does it say in the Seif of the Mishnah? So what did you explain this Mishnah to be? Rav Meir, it's going according to Rav Meir's opinion that only a Levi could eat the meiser. But what does it say in the last case of the Mishnah? Bas Levi mu'uresas l'kayin. A Bas Levi, so she got married to a kayin, only the first stage of marriage. Or Uvas kayin leLevi, or a Bas kayin that got married to a Levi. Lo toicha lo betruma v'lo b'meiser. So she cannot eat not truma, and she can't eat meiser either. Because she's mu'uresas to the kayin, she's a Bas Levi, but because she's already partially married to the kayin, she can't eat her meiser anymore. Or because she's not fully married to the kohen, so she can't eat truma either. So therefore she can't eat not truma and not meiser. So the question of the Gemara on this is, hacha, in this case where a Bas Levi is marrying a kohen, or a Bas kohen is marrying a Levi, mai zarosike. How could you refer to any of these women as a zar? Rashi already brought before, the Gemara explained before here, that even according to Rav Meir's opinion, that only a Levi could eat meiser, and a Yisrael cannot eat meiser, but a Kohen can certainly eat meiser, because a Kohen is not considered to be a Zar. The Torah is saying that a Zar, and anyone that's a Yisrael, a Zar is another name for a Yisrael that can't eat Trumah, so similar we say a Yisrael can't eat meiser, but a Kohen for sure should be allowed to eat meiser. So why is it saying in the Mishnah that a Bas Levi that's mu'uresas to the Kohen, or a Bas Kohen to a Levi cannot eat meiser? Why not? She's not a Zar at all. Even if you go like Reb Meir, that only a Levi could eat meiser, this Bas Levi or this Bas Kohen should be allowed to eat meiser. So there's something that's not understood here in the Mishnah, even with the pshat that we said that it goes according to Reb Meir. So therefore Rav Sheshes comes up with a completely new pshat of the Mishnah. Amar Rav Sheshes, so therefore Rav Sheshes says, our Mishnah is not going only according to Rav Meir, that says that only a Levi can eat meiser. So now, mai eino eicheles the ketani. It says in our Mishnah a few times that that you only can eat meiser if you are the Levi itself, but a Bas Yisrael. It says a Bas Yisrael, which is mu'uresas to a Levi. Bas Yisrael that's only married, the first stage of marriage to a Levi, that she does not eat meiser. What does that mean? All that means is, because she's not yet fully married to her husband, which is the Levi, she can't give permission to anyone else to take the trumah from the produce. That's all it means to say. In other words, Gemara Rav Sheshes is saying a completely new pshat. Eating she could eat. It's exactly that's a chiddush of Rav Sheshes' pshat. When in our Mishnah, The lashon that it says in the Mishnah is loy toichal b'maiser. She can't eat maiser. But Rav Sheshes is saying the Mishnah did not mean to say that she cannot eat the maiser. What it meant to say is that she can't give permission to anybody else to take off the maiser. Why? Because she's not fully married to her husband yet. Her husband is the Levi. He's the one he's the one that will take off the meiser, or he's the one that gets the meiser. But over here, a bas Yisrael, which is Mu'reses L'Levi, she does not give permission to a shliach to take off the meiser of someone that she's engaged to, or it's not engaged, but it's oris that she's not fully married to.
But the Sefer is talking about Bas Levi.
The Gemara is going to come back to that. The Gemara is going to come back to that in a second. But first, the Gemara is going back to what it says in the Reisha of the Mishnah. The Mishnah was speaking about a Bas Yisrael, which is Mu'reses L'Levi, Mu'beres M'Levi. So the case of a Bas Yisrael, so this Bas Yisrael cannot go and tell anybody to take off the meiser of someone that she is married to, only the first stage of marriage. Only a Eidison. That's the pshat in the Mishnah. So this is not lav dafka according to Rav Meir. This is the kula alma. She could eat meiseris, but she cannot give permission to someone else to take off the meiseris. So now the Gemara says, what does this mean? Meklal. So from this I would understand the nesua nesanis rishos. That when you have a nesua, if she's fully married to her husband, then she could give permission to take off that meiseris. Is that true? Is it only if she's not fully married, then she cannot give permission? But if she is fully married, then she could give permission. Then she could give permission to take off the meiseris. So the Gemara says, that is the halacha. And v'hatanya, we learned this in a brayse. The lashon of the pasuk is v'achaltem oisei b'chol makaim, that you can eat it wherever you are. Atem uveschem, you and your house. What is this pasuk saying here? So the pasuk is speaking about a Levi that could eat the meiseris wherever he is. Now the words atem ubeschem are extra. Why does it have to say you and your house? Limad al nesua bas Yisrael. What this teaches is that a bas Yisrael that's fully married to the Levi shenesenes rishos litraim. That she, because she's fully married, she could give permission to be tairim to take off the meiseris. So the Gemara asks on this drasha, you're saying that she can give rishos to take off the meiseris. Maybe all it's saying is that she can eat from the meiseris. So the Gemara says no. That we don't learn from this pasuk. Amrit, we said already before, truma chamura oicheles. Even truma that's more stringent than meiseris. When a bas Yisrael marries a kohen, she eats the truma like her husband. Meiser akal. So if you have meiser, which is much lighter than the truma, lekol shekeh, most definitely she can eat it like her husband. So for that, I don't need a pasuk to teach me that a bas Yisrael that's married to a Levi could eat from the meiseris. Elo, so therefore rather limid al nesua bas Yisrael shenesenes rishos litraim. What the pasuk is saying is that a bas Yisrael that's married to a Levi, that she can give rishos to be tairim from the meiser. That's the pshat in our Mishnah as well, when the Mishnah said toicha b'meiser, that she could be tairim from this meiser. Okay, so now let me just explain one point that I didn't explain before, what this is talking about. A Levi that gets meiser, after the Levi receives the meiser, there's what's called trumas meiser. You have to take off 1/10 from that meiser to give to the kohen. And that's what this Gemara is talking about. A bas Yisrael that's the wife of a Levi. And the Levi got meiseris. And now the Levi, before he eats from those meiseris, he has to take off truma to give to the kohen. So who takes off that meiser? The Levi himself. How about if her husband is not home? The Levi himself is not home. And the wife in the kitchen wants to use the produce that they got as meiser. Could she separate the truma from this meiser herself? That's the question. So what the Gemara is saying is, if she's fully married to her husband, she's a nesua, so that I learn out from Atamu Beischem, that she can take off the trumas meiseris. But if she's not, if she's only an arusa, so then she cannot take off those meiseris. And therefore she won't be able to eat from it. So the Mishnah, when it said the lashon loy toichal, it didn't mean that she can't eat meiseris. She can eat meiseris, but she won't practically be able to eat until her husband is going to take off the trumas meiseris. If she's only an arusa, she will not be allowed to do it, so she won't be able to eat from it. That's why the Mishnah uses the term loy toichal b'meiser, because practically she's going to have to wait until her husband's going to take off the trumas meiser.
If she's an arusa, she won't be living with her.
That's also true. You're right about that. If she's an arusa, she's anyways not living with him. Yeah, usually. Okay, let's continue. The Gemara now has another pshat in the Mishnah. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Where are we over here? One second. Mar berei der Ravona Amar. Mar berei der Ravona said. Another pshat in the Mishnah. What does it mean when it says loy toichel b'maiser? Again, the question over here is, why are we saying that a Bas Yisrael can't eat from Meiser? Anyone can eat from Meiser. Only Rab Meir holds that a Levi is the one that can eat a Meiser and nobody else. But Mar Bered Ravana is going to explain that in the Mishnah over here, Loima, what it's saying is, and that Mar Bered Ravana is actually going on the Seifa of the Mishnah. And the Seifa of the Mishnah, again, the Gemara quoted before the Seifa of the Mishnah, it said a Bas Koyin to a Levi, or, again, what were the two cases of the Seifa? A Bas Koyin to a Levi cannot eat, one second, just a second. Bas Levi to a Kayin and a Bas Kayin to a Levi cannot eat Maisa. What is that talking about? So he explains as follows. Loima, what this is saying is she'ein chokol Maisa bebeis agronis. That this wife cannot go down to the beis agronis, to the storage house, to the place where they have the pile of all the grain. She cannot go down there and collect Maisras. Her husband says to her, listen, I get Maisras, I'm a Levi. You're my wife. So instead of me going and picking up the Maisras, you go and pick up the Maisras for me. I'm not going to go. You go pick up the Maisras for me. So what the Mishnah is saying is, she should not go down there to the storage of where the place give out Maisras. The wife cannot go instead of the husband to pick up the Maisras. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Not that she can't eat the Maisras. She can eat Maisras. But she cannot go down and collect the Maisras over there. That's what the Mishnah was saying. Okay, so that's the pshat of here. Okay, so Rashi explains that Ma'abred Ravona does hold, like Rab Meir, that only a Levi could eat Meiser. Nobody else, a Bas Yisrael, cannot eat Meiser. But in the Seif of the Mishnah, it was talking about a Bas Koyin. A Bas Koyin is no worse than a Levi. She can definitely eat Meiser just like a Levi. So when it says in the Mishnah that the Bas Koyin cannot eat Meiser, it doesn't mean she can't eat Meiser. All it means is she can't go down to the place where the Meiser is being distributed to collect the Meiser. That's what he meant to say. So now the Gemara explains this. Now, this halacha is also brought regarding Truma. When a Kohen that collects Truma, the Kohen can't send his wife to go and collect Truma for him. And there's two reasons for this. So the Gemara now explains. This is understood how we're applying this over here, according to the opinion that says, why can't a Kohen send his wife to collect the Truma? So the one opinion says, the reason is, Mishum Yichud. Because what happens? You send your wife to go and pick up the Meiser. Where is he going to, or the Truma? Where is she going to pick up the Truma? By somebody's private home, somebody's private storage, has to go pick up the Truma. There may be Yichud. She may end up being secluded with this man picking up the Truma from him. So that's understood why we apply the same thing over here. A Levi also can't send his wife to go pick up the Meisters because there might be an issue of Yichud. But there's another opinion. The other opinion says the reason why a Kohen shouldn't send his wife to pick up the Truma is because what happens if he divorces her? So then she cannot collect any Truma anymore. So now if she's going to get accustomed to going and collecting her Truma when she's married to him, what happens after she's divorced? This person is going to think that he could still give her a Truma, and she's going to take Truma even after she was divorced. That's why we don't want a wife to ever go and collect the Truma. But if that's the reason, frek the Gemara, Grusha Bas Levi Miloy Achla B'Maiser. We are talking over here about the Seifa of the Mishnah. In the Seifa of the Mishnah, it was talking about a Bas Levi that's getting married to a Kohen, or a Bas Kohen that's getting married to a Levi. So by the case of a Bas Levi, why are you not allowing a Bas Levi to collect from the Maisras? The Bas Levi, even if she gets divorced from her husband, she still has the right to eat Maisras. She's a Bas Levi. So the Gemara says, and according to your questioning, Grusha Bas Kohen. How about if it would be a case, a Grusha Bas Kohen? Meaning a Bas Kohen that married a Kohen. Mi loy achla betruma. If she gets divorced from her husband, a Kohen, can't she go back and eat Truma? And over there as well, this halacha, that a wife of a Kohen is not allowed to go and collect the Maisris, or the Truma, applies whether she herself is a Bas Yisrael, whether she's a Bas Kohen, even if she herself is a Bas Kohen and she has a right on her own to go and eat Truma, even after she gets divorced of her husband. She's still not allowed to go and collect that Truma from a Yisrael. Why not? Ella, the reason is, Gzeira Mishum Grusha, Bas Yisrael, it's a Gzeira Midrabanan. If the wife was a Bas Yisrael, so we don't want then her to think that after she's divorced she can still collect Truma, so by a Bas Kohen we would guys do that as well. So over here as well, we say that even a Bas Levi that's married to a Kayin, no wife could ever go collect not Truma and not Meiser, because you don't want ever to be a confusion in the case of a wife that's a Bas Yisrael that's divorced from her husband, that she should think that she could still collect Truma or Meiser. That's the Pshat in the Mishnah. Now, based on this, the Gemara asks, if that's the Pshat, Yihachi Ma'irye Me'ureses. In the Mishnah, it's said that we're talking about a case of Edison. She's not yet fully married to her husband. What are we saying now? We're talking about a wife that is a gzeira. Any wife is not allowed to go and collect maisres or truma, either because the issue is yichud or because we're chayshish after divorce. So why does it only say moresas? Afila nesuanami, even if she's fully married to her husband, still the same gzeira that a wife can't collect truma or maisres should apply. So the Gemara says you're right, but Aidi the Tana Reisha Me'ureses in the Reisha of the Mishnah when it spoke about a Bas Yisrael that's Me'ureses to a Kayin that she does not eat truma. Over there it says Dafke Me'ureses. So Tani Nami Seifa Me'ureses. So in the Seifa of the Mishnah it also uses the term Me'ureses, but it's Lav Dafke Me'ureses. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in the Braise Truma LeKayin. The truma belongs to a Kayin, and Ma'aserisha and Levi, and the Ma'aserisha belongs to the Levi. That's the one that we have to give the Ma'aser Rishon for. Devri Rabbi Akiva, this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says, L'kayin, that even the Ma'aser also goes to the Kayin. So the Gemara asks on this, what does this mean? L'kayin v'loy Levi? Is Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah saying that Ma'aser Rishon you give only to a Kayin and not to a Levi? How could this be? Rashi says there are many psukim. We know clearly that there are many psukim in the Torah that says that Ma'aser Rishon goes to the Levi. How could he say you give Ma'aser Rishon to the Kayin? Amos, the Gemara says what he meant to say is af l'kayin, that the Ma'aser Rishon goes also to the kayin, not goes also to the kayin. Okay, not to a Levi or to a kayin. Af l'kayin, you can give the Ma'aser Rishon either to the Levi or to the kayin. So the Gemara now brings the source for this. My time with the Rabbi Akiva. What's Rabbi Akiva's reason that he says that the Ma'aser Rishon goes to the Levi? Because the pasuk says Ve'al Levim tedaber va'amarta aleim. The pasuk clearly says speak to the Levim, and you should tell the Levim. And at that pasuk it speaks about the Ma'aser, and it says over there the Eibusha tells the Levim that I'm giving them Ma'aser because they work in the Beis Hamikdash. So it says there in the pasuk that they're the ones that take the Ma'aser from the Yidden. So it says clearly Levim. So B'Levim komishtoikra. The pasuk is speaking about the Levim. What does Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah say to this? So he says, "Ked Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi," like what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi once said. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi be'esrim va'arba mekaymes. We find 24 places in Tanakh nikru kayanim Levim, that the kayanim are referred to with the name Levim. And therefore, and he brings one example. Va'kayanim haLevim b'nei tzaddik. The kayanim, Levim, the children of tzaddik. Tzaddik was a kayan, and still it calls them Levim. So what do we see from this? When it says in the pasuk Ve'al Levim tedaber, meaning that you're giving the Ma'aser to Levim, it doesn't mean only Levim. It means the Levim and the kayanim, because a kayan is also called a Levi. So that's the machlokes here between Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that the Ma'asers go only to a Levi, and Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says that Ma'aser Rishon goes to either a kayan or a Levi. And Rabbi Akiva will answer to this. Over here you can't say that when the Torah writes Leviim, it means both a Kayin or a Levi. Why? Because regarding Ma'aser Rishon, it says V'achalta Ma'aser b'chol makom. You eat it in any place. What does it mean, any place? That only is a Levi. Why? Misha yachal echla b'chol makom. This refers only to someone that could eat it in any place, which is a Levi. A Levi could eat his Ma'aser anywhere he wants. But Yatza Kayin, this excludes a Kayin. Shein yachal echla bebeis hakfares. A Kayin can't eat his Ma'aser in any place because a Kayin is not allowed to be tamei. So he can't go into a beis hakfares. So if the Torah uses the term b'chol makom regarding Ma'aser, it has to be speaking only about a Levi and not a Kayin. But the Gemara says, how would Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah explain these words b'chol makom? V'idach, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah will tell you, b'chol makom doesn't mean necessarily in a beis hakvaris, but what it means is, kol heiche the boy, he can eat the mais however he wants, meaning the lebay chayma. It doesn't have to be eaten in Yerushalayim, around the walls of the city of Yerushalayim. And also, if you eat meiser even when the person is tamei, he doesn't get malchus. Truma you're not allowed to eat when you're tamei, but meiser you can eat when you're tamei. So therefore he says this still could be referring to b'chol makom, could still include a kayin. Gemara now brings a story that happened between these two Tanaim here, between Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva. There was a garden. Now have a shakla Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Ma'aser Rishon mina, And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah used to go to, he was a Kohen. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Kohen, and he would go to that garden and take Ma'aser Rishon, like his opinion. His opinion is that even a Kohen gets Ma'aser Rishon. But Rabbi Akiva disagreed. Rabbi Akiva said that the Ma'aser Rishon goes only to the Levi. So also Rabbi Akiva went, and Ahadre lepischa lebei kivri. This garden apparently had two entrances. One entrance was from the street, and anyone could go in there. Another entrance, you had to go through a Beis HaKvaris to enter in there. So Rabbi Akiva went to the owner of the gardener, and he told him, listen, you know Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is coming here and taking Ma'aser Rishon, and he's a Kohen, he's not supposed to be taken. Close off the entrance to the street, and the only way to enter should be from the Beis HaKvaris. And now Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah won't be able to come and get the Ma'aser Rishon because Rabbi Akiva held it's not his. So Amar, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, Akiva b'tarmiloi, Akiva has his tarmel. How do they translate tarmel over there? His pouch. He has his pouch. And this Rashi says, he was using this expression regarding Rabbi Akiva. He used to be a shepherd. When he was by Kalba Savua, he used to be a shepherd. So Rabbi Akiva is the one, the shepherd with the pouch. And Vano Chaya, but I have to live. In other words, he was saying, he's trying to take away my livelihood that I could go and get my Sirishin. The truth is, it actually, Mefarshim actually point out, as we'll see later in the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a very rich person. And he really didn't need this. So some say that he was saying to Rabbi Akiva, you think you're taking away the Ma'aser Rishon from me? I'll live. I'll be fine without this Ma'aser Rishon. You might have trouble. You only have your little pouch. But I'll live. I'm rich enough. I'll live without the Ma'aser Rishon here. That's what he was saying. Okay, this is the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now the Gemara brings an additional argument. And this will be eventually a question on this story here. Itmer, so we learned now another argument regarding Ma'aser Rishon. This is something that developed in later generations. Until here, the Gemara was discussing Ma'aser Rishon min HaTorah. Rabbi Akiva says min HaTorah, Ma'aser Rishon goes only to a Levi, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says it goes to a Levi or a Kohen. But now in later generations, in the time of Ezra, so there was a knas. And the Gemara says, Mipnei ma konsu Leviim b'Ma'aser. So in the time of the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash, there was a knas, there was a penalty. They took away the Ma'aser Rishon of the Leviim. But why? Why did they take away the Ma'aser Rishon that you should not give it to a Levi anymore? Pligi bar Rabbi Yonasan v'Sabya. Rabbi Yonasan and the elders argued about this. Chad Omar, one said, Shalei Olu b'mei Ezra, because in the time when all the Yidden went up from Bavel to Yerushalayim, the Leviim did not join. They didn't go up to the second Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, they came later eventually, but because they didn't come up in the beginning, so therefore they were penalized that they do not get Ma'aser Rishon anymore. That's one opinion. Chad Omar, another reason is, Kedeshi Yismuchu Kayanim Olav b'mei Tumasam. They took away the Ma'aser Rishon from the Levi, and they gave it to the Kayanim, and the reason is because the Kayanim need what to eat in the time when they're tamei. Usually a Kohen, how does he have food to eat? They don't own any properties or own any fields of their own. They have truma. What happens when they're tamei? They can't eat truma. So in order that the Kohen should have what to eat when they're tamei, so they gave the Ma'aser Rishon to the Kohen. So the Gemara asks on this second reason here, it doesn't make sense. The opinion that says the reason they took away the Ma'aser Rishon from the Levites because they didn't go up to Yerushalayim, they deserve to have this knas because they didn't go. The other opinion that says the reason is they took it away from the Levi because the Kohanim need what to eat when they are tamei. Mishum Kohanim kansinu leLeviim, because we're concerned about the Kohanim that they need what to eat, so therefore the Leviim should suffer. So the Leviim, we take away what belongs to them. That's not right. So the Gemara explains, no, the pshat of this machlokes is a bit different. Ela kula alma, everybody agrees. Knasa shle'ala b'mei Ezra. The knas of why they took the Ma'aser away from the Leviim is because they didn't come up in the times of Ezra by the second Beis HaMikdash. The argument over here is as follows. They took it away from the Leviim, but the question is, what did they say? Who should you give your Ma'aser Rishon to? Mar Savar, so one opinion is, Knasa la'aniyim. The knas was that instead of giving it to the Leviim, instead give your Ma'aser Rishon to poor people. And Mar Savar, the other opinion is, Kohanim b'mei tumasam aniyim ninu. That the Kohanim, in the days when they are tamei, since they have nothing to eat, so they are the poor individuals that you have to give your Ma'aser Rishon to. That's the pshat in this machlokes over here. But the point is, what do we see over here? That in the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, the Chachamim, or Ezra, was geyser. He took away the Ma'aser from the Leviim. And he gave it to who? According to one opinion, he gave it to the Kohanim. Okay, so now, based on this, the Gemara goes back to the story between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was taking Ma'aser Rishon from this garden. And Rabbi Akiva had the door closed, and it should only be able to go in from a base of Kvaris, so he couldn't take the Ma'aser Rishon anymore. Now, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva certainly lived much later after this Knas was already imposed that the Maasros go to the Kayin, according to one opinion. So the Gemara now asks, now that story is understood according to the opinion that says Knos Elaniyim, that the Knas is that we give the Maaseh to a Levi. That's why Rabbi Akiva wanted the door closed off, that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah should not be able to enter, could only enter from a Beis HaKvaris, because why should he go and take Ma'aser Rishon? But according to the opinion that says that there's a knas, that even if the Ma'aser Rishon Menat Torah is given to a Levi, but the knas is that now it's given to the Kayin, so why did he close off this garden that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah should not be able to enter? He's a Kayin. And even Rabbi Akiva agrees that there's a knas in the later generations, there's a knas that it goes to the Kayin. So the Gemara answers, Hachi ka'am alei. This is what Rabbi Akiva was telling Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Idikos is b'teiris knasa islach. You're right. If you were coming here and taking that Ma'aser Rishon because of this knas, so then yes, you have right to take. But v'ikos is b'teiris chaluka leslach. You're coming to take from the Ma'aser Rishon according to your opinion because you think that minat Torah you're supposed to get this portion, but that you shouldn't be receiving, and that's why he wanted to make a point against Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's opinion, so he got the door closed off that he shouldn't be able to enter. Now the Gemara brings the source from this that we said before, that the Leviim did not go up in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. Where do we see that they did not join the Yidden and go up in the times of Ezra? Because there's a pasuk that says, Va'akaptem el anor abba el ava v'nachva sham yom shloisha va'avina Ba'am, and I looked at the people, Ubekayanim, and I looked at the Kayanim that were there, but I didn't find any Leviim. The Leviim did not join. Another thing it says about the Leviim. Rav Chisda said, in the beginning, the shaitrim, the officers or the police, this is what Bezdin uses to enforce a psak din. It's in the pasuk shaitrim v'shaitrim, right? So you have shaitrim. Who are these shaitrim? They were from the Leviim. Shenama, because the pasuk says, "V'shaitrim haLeviim lifneichem." The shaitrim, the officers that were from the Leviim. That was in the beginning. But then, achshav ema midim shaitrim elam Yisrael. But now we only have the officers from Yidden, from Yisrael, and not from the Leviim. Shenama v'shaitrim harabim b'rasheichem. Shaitrim harabim b'rasheichem. So the interesting thing is, it says in the pasuk in the Gemara the word shenemar. And it seems like as if there's some kind of a pasuk saying that there's Yisraelim that are shaitrim, but the Mefarshim all point out that there's no such a pasuk. Rashi here says that after I guess this is connected to before, after the Leviim did not come up, so then there were more Yidden, so therefore they appointed the officers should be from the Yidden and not from the Leviim. But there is no such pasuk, and there's a discussion in Mefarshim exactly which pasuk you do learn this out from. Okay. Could be. I think it is connected to that because later there were less Leviim because the Leviim didn't come up, so there were less Leviim and there were more Yidden, so they were not the officers anymore. So Mishnah, going back to the halachis of eating truma, and the Mishnah here, this is sort of a review from what we learned before. Bas Yisrael shenisas l'kayin. A Bas Yisrael that gets married to a kayin, so teichel betruma. She can eat truma. That's the halacha of getting married to a kayin, as we learned before. Meis, if her husband passes away, but v'lo heimenu ben, but she has a son that's now a kayin, teichel betruma. She could also eat truma. We had this before in the Gemara. V'yilid beisa yoichal, that if you have a child that's a kayin, you can eat truma. Nisas leLevi. Now she got married to a Levi. So teichel b'maisa. Now she can't eat truma anymore. A bas kayin that gets married to a zar, a Levi or a Yisrael, which is not a kayin, so now she could only eat meiser, but not truma anymore. And this Mishnah goes according to the opinion of Rab Meir that Levi, only a Levi that is, could eat meiser. So if she's married to a Levi, she can eat meiser. Meis, if her husband, the Levi, passes away, v'loi menu ben, but she has a son from this Levi, teichel b'meiser. So then she could eat meiser like when she was married to this Levi. Now what happened? Nises li Yisrael. After this, she got married to a third husband, to a Yisrael. So now, now that she's married to a Yisrael, she can't eat not truma and not meiser. But now meis, what happened if this third husband died? V'loi menu ben, she has a son from this last marriage. So still, because she has a son from this last marriage, which is a Yisrael, she still can't eat not truma and not meiser. Meis benam Yisrael. Okay, 1 second. Before I go weiter to meis benam Yisrael, so Rashi here explains that the only time a bas kayin, usually we have the halacha of a bas kayin, but here we're talking about a bas Yisrael. A bas Yisrael that was able to eat truma because she was once married to a kayin, or she was able to eat truma because she had a son a kayin. Right, so then if she later gets married to a Levi, or she later gets married to a Yisrael, she cannot anymore. And she has a son that's from a Levi or a son from a Yisrael, she still can't eat truma anymore. And even if her husband, the Levi, and her husband, the Yisrael, passes away, she still will not be able to eat truma if she has a son from this Yisrael over here. So she does not go back to eat truma. Even though she has a son that's a Kayin, but because she has also a son that's a Yisrael, she still can't go back to eat truma. Okay, now the Mishnah says, what happened now? Meis, 1 second, where am I holding over here? Meis benam Yisrael. Now she had a son of Kayin, she had a son of Levi, she has a son of Yisrael. What happens if her son, the Yisrael, passes away? So now, teichel b'maiser. She still has a son, which is from this Levi. She has a son of Levi. She can eat meiser because of him. Meis benam mi Levi. Her son that was Yisrael passed away, and the son that's a Levi passed away. Now the only son that's still alive is a son which is a Kayin. So because of that son that's a Kayin, she could also eat truma. Meis benam mi Kayin. If her son, which is a Kayin, passed away, now le'teichal loy betruma v'loy b'meiser. She can't eat not truma and not meiser. She's not married anymore to a Kayin, and she doesn't have a son that's a Kayin anymore either. Right. Now, so this is the first part of the Mishnah that spoke about a bas Yisrael. Now the Mishnah is going to say a similar kind of halacha regarding a bas Kayin. A bas Kayin shenisas Yisrael, a bas Kayin that gets married to Yisrael. So the moment the bas Kayin marries Yisrael, so when a bas Kayin marries a Zor, a Yisrael, she can't eat truma anymore. So le'teichel b'truma, she can't eat truma. Meis v'loi menu ben. What happens if this Yisrael that she's married to passed away, but she had a son with him, but still le'teichel b'truma? She still can't eat truma because of this son from this Yisrael. She could only eat truma, as the Mishnah will conclude over here, if she's going back to her father's house as she was before. But if she has a son from this Yisrael, she can't eat truma. Nisas leLevi, if she's married to a Levi, teichel b'meiser, so then she can eat meiser. Meis, but if the husband, the Levi, passes away, v'loi menu ben, and she has a son from him, teichel b'meiser, she can eat meiser, but she cannot eat truma. Nisas leKayin, if she got this bas Kayin now, got married to a Kayin, now teichel b'truma, she can eat truma because of the husband that she's married to. Meis, if this husband the Kayin passed away, v'loi menu ben, and she has a son from this husband the Kayin, teichel b'truma, she can eat truma because of her son, which is a Kayin. Meis benami Kayin, this son that was a Kayin passed away, loy teichel b'truma, so she can't eat truma anymore. Why? Because even though she is a bas Kayin, but she has a son which is a Levi. She has a son which is a Yisrael. She's not going back to her father's house. Meis benami Levi, if her son that was a Levi passed away, loy teichel b'meiser, she can't eat meiser. Meis benami Yisrael, her son which is a Yisrael passed away. So what's now? Now she has no children anymore. Her son Akayin passed away, Levi, so all her children passed away. So now she's a bas Kayin. She goes back to her father's house and she can eat truma. Regarding this, the pasuk says, "V'shava el beis avia kenureh." She goes back to her father's house as she was in her youth. Milechem avia teichel, and she can eat truma from her father's house. So that's this is the source. This pasuk is the source of all these halachas that we said here in this last case. That if she's going back to her father's house as is, she's able to eat truma.